What is up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the Start Build Grow Show. We are so glad you're here. And today's episode, I'm on with my man, Dylan McCabe with Limitless Roofing Group. He's been on before. It's always an incredible conversation. But today we're going to dive into perseverance and how do we get through the challenges that get presented to us as entrepreneurs. There's lots of ups, lots of downs, and it can be really difficult to be an entrepreneur. So we're going to talk about entrepreneurship, leadership, and perseverance. So you're going to want to stay tuned. All right, everybody, welcome in. Hey, Dylan, what's up, brother? Always great hanging out with you. Great to talk to you. Great to have you back on the show. And leading into this, man, I just, just trying to, tune in to the industry, and I, try to stay. And you're really in tune with the industry and working with a ton of different contractors. And it just, there's this, I feel like there's this overarching sentiment where, last year was a little bit rough on a lot of contractors across the country, right? A lot, the storm market specifically, a lot of lack of storms, a lot of changes, a lot of government changes. I just feel like there's a lot of people out there right now that might need some encouragement, that might, be in like a little bit of a challenging time within their entrepreneurial journey. Maybe they're new in the business. Maybe they haven't gone through the business cycle. Maybe we can talk about the business cycle here. But let's lean into that a little bit today. But anyways, how are you doing coming in today, my man?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
Love it. So let's just get, reacquainted, audience. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Dylan, you're probably living under a rock or something, but he's the man. And, he's an incredible leader in our industry. He runs a great program, a GPO program. We'll talk more about that later. But, tell us give us a little high level highlights of your entrepreneurial journey and your story, my man, as you've, developed to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. So mine's a little peculiar. I was actually a preacher in Houston, Texas, preaching and teaching and doing a lot of prison ministry, actually, and then moved to Dallas to go to Dallas Theological Seminary. That was just one of the hottest schools around at the time. They called it the Cambridge of seminaries, and I had a lot of heroes that had published books out of there. So I moved up to Dallas, and during seminary, I got a job as a fundraiser for a Christian nonprofit and just did nothing but meet donors of high net worth and build relationships with them. And one of the donors I met said, there's two young men I think you need to meet, and they're Christian entrepreneurs. And it was these two guys that had started a company in Missouri. And that broke the ice for me for the world of entrepreneurship. And they had started something from the ground up, made it very successful. Then they were on their second iteration of a marketing type company. First one was kind of a direct mail type thing. The second one was a digital marketing company. And it just opened my eyes to the fact that, man, you can start your own company. You can be an entrepreneur. It's not that hard to start. Well, the hard thing's sticking with it, but you can try out any number of ideas. And so God really redirected my path into entrepreneurship. I mean, man, I've had a vending business. I've sold online courses. I've been in the roofing business. I've done different things. But 4 years ago, we launched the Limitless Roofing Group, which is just kind of like a buying co-op or collective buying power group. And we've got almost 1,000 roofing company owners in that group. And we go to suppliers and vendors and negotiate group deals and build strong relationships that save our members a lot of money. And we pass those savings on to our members. And it's been a long journey, man. It's been a 4-year marathon and lots of ups and downs, but really thankful for where we've landed today. And really thankful most of all, man, for the relationships I've built. There's a small circle of guys that I try to stay close to, and you're one of those guys. And I'm just thankful for the relationships that God has brought about in my life. And that's made all the difference.
Amen. Yeah. Yeah. And I guess it kind of reminds me, it's been a while for those of you who are maybe just tuning in, you just now get exposure to the show. I've been doing this for, 8 years now, 7 years, long time. And it's been a while since I've kind of dove into kind of my side of the story. Right. So I'm going to share just a little bit, maybe there's some correlation here as well, but I'm coming in, this is my 20th year with this, my main company, my roofing company, which it started as we started as a general contractor. You know, the whole vision, the goal originally was to build houses. I wanted to be a custom home builder, a general contractor. And I started doing a lot of general contract work, remodels, basement finishes, and never quite got to build a house on my own with my own company. But prior to that, I worked for a general contractor building houses, and that's what I did. I was a superintendent. And in the last 20 years, as I look back, I mean, there's some serious ups and serious downs, right? And if you look back at like the economic and some of the things that I think that has really come to me now that are really difficult, and I think someone out there might be listening to this that might, you know, relate to this, that the things as an entrepreneur, many of us were leaders, we're visionaries, we're very ambitious, and we want to, you know, there's a correlation to wanting to control things. You know, we want to have control and take control of our life. Like, you don't start a business if you don't mind working for somebody, right? Entrepreneur is like, I can't work for somebody. I want to work for myself. I want to take control of my own life, my own destiny. And that element of wanting to control things, when that gets taken away as an entrepreneur, I think that is the hardest time to work through as an entrepreneur. And, you know, I went from construction, and then all of a sudden the industry shifted. The recession happened in 2008, right? And some of you old dogs might have been around for that, but that happened in 2008. So the model that I had, where I was doing a bunch of remodels and basement finish and stuff like that, the bank stopped lending, people stopped spending money, the economy changed, and they're like, nope, we're done. So that whole business, whole market just dropped out overnight. And I wasn't prepared for that. I was a small company, fledgling, just trying to get, you know, from Friday to Friday, from month to month, to try to survive. And I managed to kind of keep that ball kind of somewhat rolling for a couple of years, until I ultimately had to file bankruptcy. I ultimately lost it all. I got so overwhelmed and lost it all. And then I had to rebuild and refine myself and go back to something. What can I control? I can only control my energy, my actions, my effort, and my faith. And each time that's happened to me a few times, not the bankruptcy side. That was once, and I learned a lot from that. But what I'm getting at is there's cycles in life, there's cycles in business. And, you know, for those of you who haven't been in business for 20 years or even 10 years or even 5 years, just know that it's the challenging times when you can't control something like the weather, which has happened a lot of people right now. I know in my market, you're in Dallas, the Texas market, like, didn't have a lot of storms and hasn't in the last year and a half, 2 years. And a lot of companies are really struggling. And I know personally that the control side of it, like, I feel like I'm a good leader, I'm a good contractor, I know what I'm doing, I'm a good entrepreneur. But when there's this massive element that I can't control, that's when I feel I'm at my worst, right? That's when I feel like I'm the most vulnerable and the most stressed out and most frustrated. And I believe that there's some people out there that are feeling that same way. And what are your thoughts on that? Like, how do we, as entrepreneurs, when we get to these lows, we get in the bottom of these cycles of life and business, like, what are some tools, what are some things we can do to work through that?
Yeah, I mean, two things come to my mind. One is, well, for me, my relationship with God is my compass and all that, because I can go to prayer and talk to the one who is in control.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly have to deal with that. And, you know, we have our buying group, you know, we have some very big partners that are very consequential for our business, and we have to negotiate that partnership every year. And so, you know, there's no weight classes in the jungle, right? There's lots of times in life where you're punching way above your weight. Life isn't fair. You're often outnumbered, out-resourced, outmanned. You're in a situation where the odds are not in your favor. And so for me, I go to God and say, I don't know the future, but you do. I'm not in control, but you are. And I just try to let go. It's like, all I can do is what I can do. I can control my effort, but I cannot control the outcome. And so I'll do that. That's a big part of it, is surrendering that to him. And then the second part is, sometimes I'll think about, okay, what's worst case scenario?
Yeah.
What's worst case scenario? And really try to be realistic about it. Okay, this happens, that happens. Let's say the company goes under. You know what? Worst case scenario, if the company goes under, you got to lay off all your employees. Yes, that's a failure in business. Okay, that's going to hurt your pride a little bit. Other people are going to look in and say, "Oh man, that guy failed," or whatever. But you can get a job. You can get a job somewhere else. You can find another way to pay the bills, maybe for a year or something, get you back on your feet, and just play that out. Because a lot of times we just take all this stress of trying to control, get a death grip on control when you're not in control. You're like this guy in this little bitty boat out in the ocean with 30-foot swells, and you got your little oars and you're just trying to row your way forward. You can't. You're in a storm. You are in a storm. I heard a preacher say one time, you're either going into a storm, in one, or coming out of one. It's just inevitable. And so in those seasons where you feel like you're in the middle of a storm, I really think for me, the best thing I can do is just lay down those oars, put it in God's hands, and be faithful to do what I can do and leave the rest to him. I mean, I don't know what else you can do.
Amen. That's powerful, man. And as a business coach and consultant, it's like there's one side where you're always like, you want, there's like the structured side of press this button, do this, check this box. Here's the system. Here's the process. Let's implement that. Let's do this. Let's create this structure, that all the controllables, right? But the thing that I can't like just look into an archive of documents, or here's a curriculum. I can't just tap into that when it comes to like, there's an element of life and business, just like you said, man, you just got to have faith, right? What was that song? Like, Jesus, take the wheel, And I think that is just so incredibly powerful. And I feel like that's, I talked about the first time that whole thing happened. Then we fast forward, we go to COVID, we go to, a recession that happened in 2020, 21, 22, like we're just climbed out of it. And then feels like 25 with everything in our government, everything, our world is just seemed like chaotic right now. We're like right in it again. It's just another time where, you just have to give it to God, right? You just have to give it away and trust your faith and know that he's in control. And I think that's such a massive, sounds easy, but it takes practice. It takes discipline. It takes daily routines. And, I've been a believer my whole life, but I still, day to day, I'll still struggle with wanting to figure it out on my own. And like, nope. Read first, do your devotions, like do the things that you're supposed to be doing before just walking right into the stress and the challenges and the headaches of trying to like solve the problems that unfortunately sometimes you just can't solve on your own, and you have to lean on your higher power for that.
Yeah, and I think a big part of it is your mental game, right? I mean, leadership is, if you could break leadership down into like, think of a compass, your ability to navigate, and you've got your north, south, east, west. North is, to me, is character. Your skills will never take you further than your character can keep you. You've got to have a solid character, be a person of integrity. You've got your vision. You've got your skills. You got your relationships. These four things have to come together. But the center of that compass is your personal pilgrimage, your personal journey as a leader, and your headspace. I mean, I read a quote one time that said, you need to talk to yourself instead of listening to yourself. And when you wake up in the morning, just what are the thoughts you're allowing to come in? You need to grab those and put them where you want them and tell yourself what you want to be the truth. And it needs to be positive. I mean, it really does. I heard a guy say one time, every storm runs out of rain. This too shall pass. Yeah. And you got to talk to yourself through those hard times and get yourself into the right spot. There's a whole mental toughness training for the Navy SEALs and the guys that are in BUDS. And when they implemented that mental toughness program, they saw their pass rate increase, and they realized they could have some guy that looked like a Greek god from Florida that had been swimming all his life in the same program with a farm boy from Kentucky who'd never hardly swam at all. And the farm boy who looked puny and scrawny from Kentucky would finish, and the guy that was an athlete wouldn't. And they found out the difference is the mental game.
Yeah.
The mental toughness. And so positive self-talk, goal setting, little goals too, deep breathing, visualization, these things that you can do that may sound a little woo-woo. They're not woo-woo for the Navy SEALs. So they're not woo-woo for me. But I mean, I have mantras that I tell myself. One of the things I tell myself is everything's going to be okay. That sounds so vague and broad, but in the end, it's true. So Since everything's going to be okay, Why would I get so stressed out about this situation, this season, this quarter, whatever it might be? So talking to yourself is huge. And if you don't already do that, I just want to encourage everybody here, write down 1 or 2 statements that are true that you can kind of latch onto and tell yourself, because you're listening to information all the time. You're listening to yourself, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah. I love that. And mantra, maybe I'm going to ask you here in a sec, like what's some tools or some exercises that, and I've heard that years ago, and I started doing that myself. Is, I find myself down. One, Bible verse can be a great way to find one, but I find a verse that just really, really connects with you. And a couple for me is, out of Philippians. And obviously it's, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's a massive one for me. And then another one is, Philippians 4:6, like I want anxiety, and how like you got to give your anxiety to the Lord and let, take care of today, because tomorrow will take care of itself type of mindset of, all you can do is just show up and be the best you can be today, and don't worry about tomorrow, because it'll take care of itself. We don't have that vision. Only God knows that. So those are a couple that I lean on. And then, one of my favorites is be still. Because I feel like as an entrepreneur, maybe I know a lot of people relate to this. Like I'm always feeling like I need to make a move. I got to do something. I got to make a decision. I got to be creative. I got to create the next thing. I got to find more revenue one way. I got to find more profit. I got to hire more people, hire more sales guys, do all the things that run through our minds constantly as business owners, but I feel like, every so often, God will just like punch me in the face and say, be still and know that I am God. Like be still and know that I am here. And sometimes that's one of the hardest things, but I feel like that's the place that I grow the most. And that's the place that helps me get through the anxiety and the stress and the challenges that you come across day to day in your business. Right. And just sometimes you just got to be still and be patient. Just wait. And that's okay. Waiting is not a bad thing. And I'm literally talking to me. I'm talking to myself right now, but I believe there's someone out there that needs to hear this too, because, especially when times get, tough or challenging, you're trying to work through the winters of your business. And sometimes you just got to ride it out. Sometimes you just got to be still and focus on the things you can control. And mantras, one I incorporate my core values with that, right? It's like, be a man of God that serves, leads, teaches. That's why I wear these shirts, like serve, lead, teach, and inspire someone today. Do something today that serves, leads, teaches, and inspires others. Like be a man that does that. And sometimes every so often, I just need to, say that to myself, and it kind of resets. Like, all right, are the things I'm posting, are the things I'm talking about, are the actions that I'm taking throughout the day, are they falling into one of those 4 categories? Am I serving? Am I leading? Am I teaching? Or am I doing something of integrity that's inspiring someone else? Right. And if I can check those boxes, I know I'm, doing right, and I'm honoring, that commitment I have to myself and to my family and to God.
That's good stuff. Yeah. Going back to the mantra thing, I think one of the things I like to do is try to really figure out, what are you afraid of in this situation? What am I afraid of? And deal with that and play that out. What is that? What can I do with that fear? And then answer that fear with the truth. And again, going to playing the scenario out. And I do that with all kinds of things. I do it with the upside too. What does it look like if my company does really well? What does it look, where will we be in the next 3 years? I play that out. I visualize that as well. I'm not saying you visualize it and you will the universe to make it happen. I'm not into that, but I do try to visualize what could realistically play out. But with the negative too, what are you afraid of? And then answer that with the truth, and talk to yourself about that. And a lot of times when you identify it, instead of this big ambiguous feeling of fear or concern or stress, now it's this thing that I can deal with, I can look at, I can put under the microscope. And that's funny you said be still, because that's a big one that God has brought to my mind thousands of times over the years. And if it's, from Psalm 46, be still, know that I'm God. And there's a whole Psalm there that I memorized a long time ago that's really short, but that's the gist of it, is no matter what's happening, the world could be falling apart, mountains could be collapsing, and be still and know that I am God. I break the bow. I cut the spear in two. I burn the chariots with fire. I'm in control, basically. And that's huge, Huge, huge. Because when you have a lot of risk and you own a company and you've got people that depend on you, it's really tempting to feel like you're in control and you've got to maintain control. So that's huge, man. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, the be still one is big. The other, everything's going to be okay, is big. And then another one is rejoice, like gratitude. You really need to have gratitude as you're talking to yourself. And it's easy to get focused on problems, but you really need to be thankful and look at holistic. Okay, my company's going through a hard time. How's your marriage? How's your relationship with your kids? How's your health? There are things to be thankful for. I don't care who you are. There's people who are suffering, dying of cancer. They're still thankful for certain things. There's always something to be thankful for and to have gratitude. And that's a superpower. And then the other thing too, that I think that I've been dealing with lately is more of a mindset, is patience. You mentioned it earlier, but I think one of the problems with us as entrepreneurs is we see a mountaintop that we want to climb. And then we get on the climb. We think, I'm going to climb Everest. Well, you're not going to get to the top in an hour. You're not going to get to the top in a day. You may not even make it to the top. Storm conditions may be so bad if you try to climb Everest that your team leader may say, we're turning around because we don't want to die on this mountain. And the weather is extremely fickle. I've read a couple of books on Everest. It's really interesting to study about the teams and the leadership issues there. But I never dreamed it would take us this long to get Limitless, the Limitless Roofing Group, where it is today. I had no idea it would take such immense patience. And the word in the Bible means long suffering. You are enduring difficulty long term. That's long suffering. You are in an ultra marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not a marathon. It's an ultra marathon. Be ready for 100 miles of difficulty. That's the reality. And if that's your expectation, it makes it a lot easier. Now you're not getting all freaked out over a hard quarter or a hard year. Well, you got years and years to go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge, man. That hits home big time. I mean, it's like entrepreneurship, the journey is the destination. I say that all the time. I love that. I believe in that. Like, we have to fall in love with the journey and not with the outcomes. And the journey is filled with scars. It's filled with, wounds and challenges, and those little scars just make us tougher and tougher and better and better and better. Right. And hopefully we'll sharpen and build our relationship, with Christ as well along that, right. Along that journey too. So one thing we kind of touched on a little bit, again, topic today is like how to overcome adversity. I think that this is needed right now in the industry. Like right now, there's a lot of people that are just like they're grasping, they need something, they need some encouragement, they need to overcome whatever it is they're seeing, whatever challenges they're seeing. And I think, a lot of times myself, when I get into that place of self-doubt or frustration or like, man, I can't control this. And, I try to circle back on my daily routines. And a lot of times I find that if I get into a bad headspace, or if I'm not feeling like I'm being as effective as I can be, and I just ask myself, hey, how do you reset? And what are you doing daily that you can get yourself in a good spot? I mean, the prayer, meditation, and like it's funny. I just yesterday, I had spent about an hour, and I told my wife, I was like, I had an hour of thinking time. I call it thinking time. Right. And I was able to, I went on a nice long walk, right? It's funny. I was listening to the Psalms as I'm walking. I'm listening to the Psalms. I walk in a 45-minute, really nice walk in my neighborhood. Got done with that, got into the sauna, spent 15 minutes there, just pure meditation, got into the cold plunge, and just did this routine. It took about a little over an hour. And it's amazing, like that routine, like what it does to your mind, your body, your spirit. And like, I felt like when I had that time where I'm just like, shut the world away. Don't worry about my dang email. Don't worry about my phone. Don't answer any calls. Like just be and just think and just be present with yourself for an hour. I'll challenge you listening right now. When was the last time you had an hour of just peace and quiet, and you're just with yourself? You're just thinking and connecting to your mind and your heart and your body and your spirit. I know a lot of us talk about it. I don't know how often we're able to do that. And if you can figure out a way to maybe start 15, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour a day, like that's how I do my reset. And that's how I'm able to reset my energy and be like, all right, today I woke up ready to go. It's like, that was the end of the day yesterday. I'm like, today I woke up ready to go and wanting to rinse and repeat that process. So I don't know what you do as far as a daily routine, but hey, if you're listening to this, if you're watching on YouTube channel or listening, throw in the comments. What's your daily routine? What are some things that work? Maybe the listeners can hear. So throw a comment in there or message us, either me or Dylan. Like, I want to hear about it. What are the things that work for you to help you reset and to help you, really, navigate a daily routine?
Hey guys, my name is Dylan McCabe. I'm the founder of the Limitless Roofing Group, a buying group for the roofing industry. One of the challenges roofing companies have and our members have is they're completely fractured. They haven't come together to create any kind of stronger relationships with suppliers and vendors. So that's what we do. We have 950 different roofing companies in our group. Think of it almost like as a Costco for roofers. You join, it's a free membership, and you immediately get rebate programs from suppliers and manufacturers. You get discounts on everything from general liability insurance to marketing. You join, you save, it's that simple. We go to suppliers and vendors, we negotiate big group discounts, and we pass those savings along to our members, and it's totally free to join. Just go to limitlessroofinggroup.com. You can sign up in 10 minutes or less. We look forward to seeing you in the group. I think a thing that comes to my mind too with persevering is there's a good book by Ben Hardy about or there's a big teaching by Ben Hardy about gap versus gain.
Yep.
That's pivotal. I mean, if you can look back at your starting point and tell yourself, but look how far I've come, instead of constantly focusing on the gap between where you are and where you want to end up, which can cause anxiety, stress, depression. You're not getting there fast enough. It's taking longer than you thought it would. But look at how far you've come. I mean, that's a really big one. And I love that idea of the reset too in the daily routine. I'm extremely structured. I have the exact same routine. I wake up every day at about 6 a.m. with no alarm. I get up, say hi to my wife and daughters. I have breakfast with my Bible in front of me. I got this old school brass Bible stand, this old school looking thing that was real ornate, and my mom gave me like 20 years ago.
Love it.
And I've got my big Bible on there that I used to take into prisons with me. I read one chapter a day. I always pray ahead of time. God, help me to know you. I don't want to just know about you. I don't want more head knowledge. I want to know you. Speak to me so that I can know you and know your ways. And I read that, and then I have time after that. And I eat the same breakfast every day. I have sourdough bread with smoked salmon on, cream cheese and smoked salmon on top, 2 fried eggs, a whole grapefruit, and a big jar of water every day, every single day. I could eat that for 10 years. Like, I just am weird like that. And then I go work out in my garage, in my gym, and then spend time in prayer and stuff like that. But yeah, it's huge. But that does something else. I'm not only connecting with God, I'm telling life, I'm in control of how I spend my day. I'm not being pulled along by all the demands and like you said, the emails and the people and the this and the that, and the problems and the fires. I'm in control. I'm setting the pace here. So I love that. I love that structure.
I love that. And I've heard your story on that before. And man, I don't know. That's funny. Here, let's see the comments. What side are you on? Are you disciplined like Dylan? Like, I envy that, man. And I just, as much as I work towards that, it's like, and I don't even like to use the words like, that's not me. I'm not wired that way. But man, I envy that, because that is incredible. When I work towards that and I'm able to have a little more discipline, it's like everything seems to unlock and fall into place, and then human nature kicks in, and things happen, events happen, travel happens. It's like all the things in life happen. And I feel like that's where I start to lose that discipline, and I'm inconsistent at what time I go to bed and what time I get up and those sort of things. And that's why it's like every so often you just need to have that reset. Right. And I think, we're not going to all be at that level. And I mean, if you can, man, I encourage that and do that. It's a huge, advantage to just be in control of your day like that. And I'm going to, every time I hear that, I get inspired, brother. You're inspiring me right now. You're inspiring somebody out there to sharpen up their daily routine. And I'm going to, be able to take away from that myself. So regardless, just, little small habits done consistently over time lead to big results, lead to big change, lead to big impact. So it's just the little things. You don't have to have the same thing, the same hour We don't necessarily always have that, but hey, maybe start with 10 minutes, maybe start with 30 minutes, So I am able to, like, the first 30 minutes of my day, before I check my email, before I check anything on the phone, that's when I do my devotion and meditation and prayer, right? So you can do 10 and 10 and 10 minutes of each. And at least that, like, pick a devotion, pick something. The Bible app is great. That's what I use. It's like, find something in there that's like, to prompt you, right? If you don't know and you don't have as much discipline, you can go to seminary and those sort of things. That's okay. That's okay. Just find something. If you're stressed about something, search out a topic. You can find a 21-day reading plan. It takes 5 minutes to do that. It's 5 minutes, 10 minutes to watch a little video and do the prayer and do the reading. Like, just that little habit, I would encourage you to do that. It's 5 to 10 minutes. It's a great place to start. And I know when I fall away from that, if I don't do that consistently, you can see the rest of your day. You can see how, the enemy finds his little window and creeps into your mind and creeps into your energy level, and then you get distracted and you aren't as efficient and effective as you can be as a leader each day.
That's good. Yeah. And I think going back to how do you persevere in a storm, I'm sure everybody on here I assume a lot of guys have heard about the buffaloes in Colorado and other places where there's plains and big storms roll through, come off the mountains, and they've researched it and tracked the difference between the way buffaloes respond and a herd of cattle responds. And a herd of cattle just runs. The storm starts coming and the wind picks up and the rain comes and maybe some hail too. Man, the whole herd of cattle just runs, but they can't outpace the storm. So they run with the storm and just get pummeled. Whereas the buffalo just turn and face it. They just stand there and face the storm. They don't try to worm their way out of it. They don't wiggle out of it. They don't try to make it, end as quickly as possible. They just face the storm. And of course they have to endure a lot less that way. So I think that's really cool. And they're, ex-CrossFit champion Rich Froning has a company now where he sells beef jerky and other stuff, but he has these t-shirts that say face the storm. And I love that. But I think a pivotal thing for me in enduring trials and facing storms and getting through, yes, I rely on God, but you know what? God made us to rely on other people. Now, a lot of people miss this in the beginning of the Bible. God created man and he said, it's not good for man to be alone. Yep. It's not good. It is not good to operate in isolation. And, for a lot of people, that's the worst thing in their life, is feeling isolated, feeling like nobody understands them, feeling like there's no way out. In the worst case, they can become suicidal. That's because they're alone. I mean, that's the worst case scenario, right? But in leadership, I've found that it's a lot easier when I can hang out with somebody like you that can kind of understand what I'm going through. We can relate on in a lot of areas, and we could have lunch and you and I could talk and I could say, man, Randy, I'm just struggling, man. Like, this thing is hard. Here's the issues I'm dealing with. And you and I talk, and you can share some issues you've had. And I've shared that burden. It weighs a lot less when I share it. Yep. And then when you tell me about, maybe sometimes you might tell me some stuff you've gone through, and I'm thinking to myself while you're sharing it, man, what I'm going through is not as hard as that, or that story Randy just shared is as difficult or maybe even more difficult than what I'm going through now. And in a weird way, it's encouraging. Yeah. It's encouraging to know you're not alone. You're not going through some odd situation that nobody understands or that nobody else is going through. Because if you get on Facebook and you look at everybody's highlight reel, and it's like, oh, great. Well, they're crushing it. What am I doing wrong? But you need relationships. And so that's a challenge, I think, to anybody listening to this, who think of one or two guys that you'd like to talk with, have lunch with, share some challenges with, and open up, be vulnerable, be real about your challenges, and be blessed by that. And it gives them a chance to put down their guard. Now we're not competing with each other. We don't have anything to prove to one another. And you will be so blessed by that. And that's killer for me, relationships and the other people I rely on for wisdom. I mean, right now we're working on some stuff in Limitless, and I've got a couple of business partners, and I'm so thankful for their input. They are so much wiser than me in different aspects of the business. So relationships for any of you guys listening to this, that's been the biggest the most pivotal thing in my life is the relationships with a few people that I've chosen to surround myself with. And there's just some situations you're going to be so weighed down and burdened and stressed if you don't share that with some brothers that you can admire and look up to and align with.
Oh man, that's so powerful. And I love it because in traditional fashion on this show, I always try to end with a golden nugget, but literally if you're just tuning in, we've spent the last 35 minutes like golden nugget after golden nugget. And it's just, I love that happens when you and I just get in a conversation together. And I can assure you, and you guys all know this, it's lonely. Leadership, entrepreneurship, building, running, founding, growing a business, man, it can be lonely at times. You are expected to have all the answers. You wear if you're like me, I wear the responsibility of all my staff and all the people, my family, their families, and like the generations. I wear that, and sometimes it can be extremely heavy. So I can't encourage you enough to find a group, find someone, find a group of people that align with your values, that you can lean into and connect with. And it's not just about like what you can get out of it. Your story is relevant regardless of how far along your journey you are. If you're brand new as an entrepreneur, if you've been doing it for 20 years, like it is still relevant. There's still value that you can provide to someone else. And if you go into with that mindset of how do I serve others and how do I help others, you'll gain 10x with that mindset. So don't go into relationships on like what I can get out of it. Go into it with what you can give to that relationship. So that's one piece of advice. And another one is, this one's probably the hardest one, is if you're finding yourself in a rut or in a struggle or trying to persevere, trying to get through this challenge, and maybe you don't have, this great circle of trusted people around you. Sometimes you need to do an audit of the people around you, because we are the sum of the, what they say. So I've heard it as 5 people or 10 people. Let's just say 10. We're the sum of the 10 people we spend the most time with. And sometimes we really need to look at ourselves, and honestly tell ourselves, what kind of impact are we giving, and what are we being influenced by the people around us? Are those people affecting us in a positive way or a negative way? And unfortunately, this can even be family. I'm not saying peace out in your family, but like if we're spending a ton of time with people in our family, even that are just bringing us down and making us feel bad about everything, maybe that's not where we need to be spending our time. So do an audit of the people you surround yourself with and replace the ones that are not filling your cup and not bringing, positive energy and encouragement to your life, and level up. As the cliche and as the story goes, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Adjust your room, find your circle of friends, and find ways to make that better and improve that, and surround yourself with people that are going to encourage you and that are going to inspire you.
Yeah, that's so good. And going back to those relationships, the Bible says older men are to teach younger men, older women to teach younger women. And there's immense value and wisdom in talking to some guys who are a couple of decades older. I went to a basketball game. I've got a friend that's kind of an informal mentor type here in Dallas that I'll talk to during different seasons of business or whatever. But a few times a year, he invites me to the Dallas Mavs, and he's had tickets on the floor for like 20 years. And so I've been spoiled. That's the only way I like to go to games now.
I know. Once you go, it's like, oh, I can't go to a regular game. I made this mistake of taking my 10-year-old son and put on tickets to the floor. So everything else is just like a letdown for him now.
That's totally. So we were dealing with some tough stuff in business, and he always invites 3 guys. He's got 4 seats. And these 2 other guys that came are both in their, I'd say late 50s to early 60s, both entrepreneurs, own multiple companies, had exits, doing really well. And I brought up the issue I'm dealing with. Here's another thing, side note. When somebody asks you, how's it going? Be real. Man, we're struggling. That's what I do. We're struggling. I mean, I'm not trying to be a downer, but I don't want to be dishonest either. It's not going, there's times where it's not going great. Now there's things to be thankful for no matter what's going on. And I have a technique. There's another rabbit hole. It's called the but positive technique, where I'll say, here's the problem, but this and this is going well. And I use that religiously I got that from a book called The No Complaining Rule. He's got tactics. So for anybody who's a chronic complainer and chronically negative, read The No Complaining Rule. It'll change your life. Okay, so going back to the Dallas Mavs game, I opened up to these guys about what was going on. Oh, yeah, I've been through that. Here's what I learned. Here's the lessons I learned there. And we do it this way now. In every other situation, here's how we handle that. Here's what contracts look like. Here's what this looks like, that looks like. Immensely helpful. I walked away from that Mavs game going, man, this happens a lot more than I thought it did. And like people say, sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. I've learned a lot the hard way. Yeah. And I'm thankful to talk to these older guys that have some dents in their armor and some scrapes and gashes and some scars. They've been through it. They suit up and they show up. They have been doing so for decades. Man, I've got a lot to learn from these guys. Yeah, YouTube's great, but sometimes it's really good to talk to somebody that has at least 10, 15 years on you.
Absolutely. And get outside your circle and comfort zone. Like if you're in the whatever business you're in, try to get influence and learn from people who are in different industries and different businesses, different perspectives. So, I did that intentionally. I joined EO, and it's been an eye opener, because it's like we find ourselves in this little world of roofing or whatever. A lot of roofers are listening to this or watch this, but find networking groups, find chambers, find places where you can connect and network with people outside of your industry. You're going to get totally different insights that actually going to help you in ways that you never, thought of before, and you'll look at things a different way by just getting outside your comfort zone. But man, Dylan, as always, it's been awesome hanging out with you, man. We will definitely do this some more. And I thank you for your service to the industry, man. You're just a great influence, a great person. You inspire me, great friend. Appreciate you. Audience, thank you guys for listening. If you're listening to the podcast, thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Throw a comment in there, leave us a review, let us know how we're doing. If you haven't, make sure, if you're listening to the podcast, go to the YouTube channel. It's the Roofing Academy. Go to the YouTube channel. You can see clips of all of our shows. We've updated everything. We have a ton of different content on there. A lot of full, we're bringing back old shows that maybe you haven't heard or saw or seen yet. So make sure to go to the YouTube channel, like and subscribe to that as well. It all helps the good old algorithm to reach more people, and that's what we're trying to do. So thank you so much for tuning in. Dylan, thanks for hanging out with me. Take care, everybody. God bless.